First of all, let me thank you for doing what I think all of us who had any responsibilities during the late 1990s, early 2000 have a responsibility to do, which is to apologize to the families for letting them down. I think it was a courageous gesture, and I think it'd be a lot easier for us to, in a non-judgmental fashion, figure out what went wrong and what to do in the future if we'd all sort of start off our inquiries with that declaration. I appreciate very much the sincerity of that. And I may also say I feel badly because I presume that you are at the moment receiving terrible phone messages and email messages, and I hope you don't take it personal, because you're just caught in one of these moments. I can barely see you because of all the cameras. I'm having to look through it. No, it's okay. I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to illustrate the attention that's being paid to you. And
Senator, I think I knew what the price would be.
Well, you're a smarter man than most of us then, because I think you can sort of know it theoretically, but until you get in it, it can be quite surprising. And let me also thank you for over a quarter century of public service. I mean, you really, in many ways, are an example of a single individual coming into government and demonstrating that you can make a difference over a long period of time, and you have. And I think as badly as you feel toward the families that are sitting behind you, there are many families that are today unknowingly the recipient of your service, because we did, thanks to you and thanks to many others who were working with you, prevent an awful lot of bad things from happening as well. So let me start off with that, and let me start off by saying that I think that one of the things we got to try to do is get to a point where we can have honest disagreements, and let those disagreements permit us to discover where in fact we've got common ground. I find, in fact, arguments almost being necessary, and you again are a very good demonstration of that. You almost always, with your declaratories, provoke a good argument, and it's those arguments that allow us to discover where our common ground is. Let me say that in one area I disagree with you. It's on the Delinda. You said in response to Senator Gordon earlier that it would not have prevented 9/11. It would not have resulted in a declaration. Was not a declaration of war. You weren't advocating declaring war. I believe Delinda would have necessitated a declaration of war, and probably one of the reasons that it was rejected, as well as other options that I think would have substantially reduced the risk of 9/11 had we followed your advice. One of the reasons it probably was not taken up by the National Security Council and the President was that it would have required that draconian of a step, and you've heard me say it before, but I think it's one of the mistakes that we made. Let me ask you, just specific to the use of airplanes as a weapon, because it seems so obvious, and again, it seemed obvious. Fully disclosed, seemed so obvious after the fact. I mean, it was such a simple and easy strategy that was put in place. But in your case, in '96 with the Olympics, you raised a concern about a small Cessna being used to attack the Olympics in Atlanta. And I think it was it '98, in December '98, you were head of the CSG chairing the CSG when there was a big concern on the East Coast about the possibility of someone connected to Osama bin Laden hijacking a commercial aircraft out of New York City. That warning went out. During the Millennium Scare as well, you sent a memo to Berger discussing the possible domestic threats, and the quote is that, "Is there a threat to civilian aircraft?" In March 2001, another CSG item on the agenda mentions the possibility of alleged bin Laden interest in targeting U.S. passenger planes at the Chicago airport, end of quote. And it seems to me that we had a broad general understanding that it was possible that hijacking might be on the list of things that were going to be used. And I remember Administrator Garvey, when she came before this commission a month or so ago, all their attention was overseas, she said. I mean, if you listen and look at the documents on the day of 9/11, it just inescapably leads to the conclusion that we were surprised by hijacking. And I wonder if you've got a perspective on how it's possible that we were surprised by hijacking, let alone multiple hijacking simultaneously occurring at the same moment.
Well, Senator, I would distinguish between hijackings in general and hijackings that then turn the aircraft into suicide weapons. There had been hijackings by terrorists going back for 20, 25 years. And the United States had some programs in place to deal with that. In 1996, after the TWA 800 crash, the President appointed a commission on aircraft safety and security that looked at whether we needed to augment our protection against hijacking. And it made several recommendations. Most of those recommendations were carried out, not all of them. One of the things it rejected was federalizing the aircraft searching process that is now done by the Transportation Security Agency, because it would have cost so much money and it would have required such a big federal bureaucracy. At the time, when there had been no recent hijacking, I assume that commissioners on that commission thought they were making the right recommendation. Many of their recommendations for increased security, however, were carried out. But as to your question about using aircraft as weapons, I was afraid, beginning in 1996, not that a Cessna would fly into the Olympics, but that any size aircraft would be put into the Olympics. And during my inspection of the Atlanta Olympic security arrangements a month or two before the Games, I was shocked that the FBI hadn't put into effect any aircraft air defense security arrangements. So I threw together an air defense for the Atlanta Games somewhat quickly, but I got an air defense system in place. We then tried to institutionalize that for Washington to protect the Capitol and the White House. And that system would have been run by the Secret Service. It would have involved missiles, anti-aircraft guns, radar, helicopters. Secret Service developed all the plans for that. Secret Service was a big advocate for it, but they were unable to get the Treasury Department, in which they were then located, to approve it. And I was unable to get the Office of Management and Budget to fund it.
But certainly, just two-sentence response. I mean, the papers were full of stories about men and women using suicide as a device in carrying out terrorist objectives. The Second Intifada was in full force beginning in late 2000 through 2001. So I perhaps in a second question, if I get the chance, we can continue this discussion.
I'd enjoy that. The bottom line here is, I thought I agree with you, and I thought I had made a persuasive case that we needed an air defense system as well as an airport system, not just to stop hijackers at baggage inspection, but to deal with them if they got through that and were able to hijack an aircraft. I thought we needed an air defense system. And we got a little of that air defense system implemented, but only a little.
Put me on the list if we have a chance to do a second round.